This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Pyle, and this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you're listening, I'm here with Jennifer Mackey-Mary. She's a wardrobe stylist who's on a mission to help female entrepreneurs elevate their personal brand with style. After dressing thousands of women over the last 17 years, she knows the key to making a great first impression comes within the first 10 seconds of meeting someone. Now, Jennifer is passionate about helping work-at-home business owners curate a wardrobe that aligns the personality of their brand with the comfort and flexibility needed for hashtag mom life. Now, as a non-mom, I'm a dog mom, so maybe I'm like a hashtag dog mom life situation, but I can definitely say that even if you don't have any kids, but you still work at home, the struggle is still real. We work at home. We just don't really care about getting dressed that much, but if we do, it makes a big difference. So really excited to have you on the show, Jennifer. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And so you're joining us from Minneapolis, Minnesota, but you had a brick and mortar, so to speak, or kind of an on the ground working one-on-one with clients business near Washington, D.C. Is that correct?
That is correct. And my family just moved across country, and now I've kind of gone 100% virtual.
Very, very cool. I love that you made that transition, because I think back to my personal training days and I didn't know anything about the internet and how to reach people on it. It was just, I don't know if it wasn't new. It was 2012, but I know a lot more about the internet now. And I look back and I'm like, I felt so limited to just working with people in Southeast or Southwest Orlando, which is where I lived. And it was crazy. And so I never took that business online. Fortunately, now I figure that out with my freelancing, which I enjoy more than I enjoyed personal training anyway. So it's a win-win. But I'm so curious. I was just on your website before we started recording, and I was telling you offline as well. I am your ideal client. I know a lot of our listeners are as well. We work at home and we put kind of our personal style on the back burner because we're like, I've said this line so many times. I'm sure you've heard it as well, Jennifer. Like, I don't have anybody to impress, right? I'm already married. My dog does not care if I'm wearing clothes or not. And so I just don't have any motivation to get dressed, but it really does affect us. But I'm curious, before we get into all the nitty gritty details, I want to know a little bit more about you and how you got into what you're doing.
Well, first of all, yes, I hear all the time that women don't have a reason to get dressed. And I always say, it's not for anybody else. It's just for you. So we'll park that for a second. But I never meant to get into fashion. This was not my thing growing up. I'm still not a fashionista. I really like to focus on style. I'm not label obsessed. But my early career was actually spent in the restaurant industry. I was a corporate trainer and I traveled all the time. I loved it. It was a perfect career for a young person without kids. And I just got to the point where I was really tired of being on the road all the time. So when a fashion company, Chico's, called me and said, we're looking for a regional training manager, I was like, well, I can train people. If you're a trainer, you can train on anything, right? That's your skill. So I made the leap from food to fashion in, what was that? 2000, I guess. And I've never looked back. The ability to help a woman feel good about herself, to elevate her brand, to help her reach her goals, just through clothing is so amazing to me. And I just love that connection when a woman looks in the mirror and loves the way she looks and knows that she can do anything she wants to do. And really, it can be just about the pants. So yeah, I never meant to be in fashion, but it turns out that I absolutely love it. And I love clothes for what they can do for women, not just because they're pretty things hanging in our closets.
Yeah, I love that philosophy too. And I also love how you've made the connection with, hey, it's not just clothing. It's not just about looking good. And you realize that these women like me, and a lot of our women, our female listeners, it's a problem and you're solving it. So in Work at Home Heroes, in the community, in my book, podcast episodes, we're always talking about that making money has to do with solving problems. And so some people just don't realize that clothing is a problem until it's a problem, right? And then they're like, oh, wow, I don't feel very good about myself. I don't really know what to do about it. And so that's where someone like you comes in and you can help them solve that problem. And it is so much about mindset, and how we dress can affect that. I definitely feel better when I take a shower after I work out and put on some clean clothes and a little bit of makeup. It doesn't take a lot, but it affects how I feel about myself. And as a result, I'm always telling people that the way you think affects how you act and what choices you make. And so if you're feeling kind of frumpy or junky or just kind of lazy or sweaty or gross for whatever reason, like you're not going to feel very good about yourself. You're not going to feel as empowered to make positive decisions. And even just one positive decision, like working out in the morning and then taking a shower, those little positive decisions will ripple out into the rest of your day. I call that the ripple effect. Just like learning one skill can ripple effect out into learning more skills over time, and just earning a little bit of money online will ripple out into earning more money online over time. So I'm super inspired by that. How did you discover initially that it was a problem? I'm interested in hearing that side of things from you.
Well, it's interesting. I've worked for 3 different retail brands. I've worked for Chico's, which is focused toward a more mature customer, a customer who maybe felt like her body and her style years were sort of behind her, and she was sort of rediscovering, she's finally got money to spend on herself. She finally isn't chasing little kids. She's finally, she has that time. So it was a lot of women kind of rediscovering their style, but also dressing a very different body than they used to have. And then I went to work for a high-end boutique, and it was very high fashion. It was all the latest brands, and it was a great fashion education. But these women didn't necessarily have a problem, right? The biggest size we carried, I think, was an 8. So these weren't women who were struggling with their bodies. They're not women who, they definitely were, but not in the same kind of way. They were women with tons of disposable income. So I didn't really feel connected in the way that I like to, where you can use clothes to solve a problem. And then I went to work for Gap Maternity. And I loved working for Gap Maternity because here you have women who are truly dressing a body that feels alien to them, that is totally different. I had women crying in the fitting rooms all the time, and I love those women. I absolutely love those women. So for me, that's how I began to look at solving that clothing piece as a key to other things. And I've had a lot of clients who have skipped their friends' weddings, who don't want to go on date nights with their husbands. I actually had a client who didn't want to go on a trip to New York. She was staying in a plaza for 6 days with her husband. She didn't want to go because she didn't have anything to wear. And I always like to say, it's not about the dress. It's about the life you live in the dress that matters. And that's actually a quote from fashion editor Diana Vreeland. But it's really true. When you don't have the dress to live the way you want to live, to go the places you want to go, that's when it's a problem. So I don't necessarily just help clients buy things that are pretty, but I help them buy things that if you want to go out to dinner with your friends, you've got something that makes you feel good and you want to go. And I think I just kept hearing the same stories over and over and over from women. And I realized that it's an actual problem. And growing up, I think a lot of women experience this. We shopped with our mothers. We bought things, but we were never really taught how to build a wardrobe. And we were never taught how to put it all together in a way that actually ended up to be something that made us feel good, that was about more than just collecting clothes. And I think just through all those, I was able to put the pieces together to realize what women want is a simple wardrobe that can take you just about anywhere and makes you feel fabulous for the life you really live.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're speaking to somebody who is in your ideal market for one, but I'm like, I got all kinds of motivation to go clean out my closet now. I do it kind of as I go. Like if I wear something and I catch myself looking in the mirror and thinking, oh, I've gotten into the habit of just chucking that piece, like the shorts that got too big or the fabric stretches out and doesn't look as good an hour after I put it on. If I don't feel good in something, I've gotten into the habit of saying, you know what? If I don't look good in it now, if I don't like it now, it's probably not going to do me any good 6 months from now. So let's get rid of it. And I just love how you turn this into a business. It feels so service level, right? Because we put clothes on our bodies, on the surface of our bodies, but how we look on the outside, I think really reflects how we feel about ourselves on the inside. And it's so much mindset related. I'm just curious for our listeners as well, because I know, but I just want to hear it from you. You're the expert. I mean, this kind of stuff, if I just talked about it, they'd be like, yeah, okay, let her talk, Kaylin. But I want to know specific examples of the way you dress and, choosing to get dressed in the morning as an example too affects your mindset in a positive way.
Well, I will give you 2. And one of my favorite clients came to me about 4 years ago, probably. And she is a bright, educated, go-getter, upwardly mobile, but she could not get promoted in her job. She just couldn't. And she went to her boss and she said, why am I not being promoted? And he said, you don't look like a manager. And I think it was actually a kindness that this person gave her, that reality that she wasn't putting herself together like an executive. She wasn't putting herself together like she belonged at that table. So she called me and she said, I got to do something. I went over. All of her pants were too big. All of her tops were too big. Everything. She was just going to work looking like a hot mess. And nobody cares what you know until they can look at you and not be distracted by all the other stuff. And her look was honestly really distracted. So we took her shopping. We got her in clothes that fit. We got her in things that were put together. It was a very easy mix and match wardrobe. 3 months later, she was promoted. And I said, do you think it's the clothes? And she said to me, I don't think it's the clothes. I think I started really showing up. So, we solved that external problem of what are you wearing, but it's the confidence too that comes with knowing you look really, really put together and knowing that your clothes are flattering and appropriate for your level. And then I had another client, and I actually just got an email from her about an hour ago. And she told me, and it was super humbling, she told me that working together was one of the greatest days of her life next to her wedding and the birth of her children. And I was like, wow, that's huge. And, so we emailed back and forth. And what she said to me is she'd been struggling with her weight for so long and putting on these clothes that were too big, hiding beneath just tents of fabric. And, we went shopping. I put her in clothes that fit. She lost 20 pounds that day just in wearing clothes that fit her. And all this weight that she'd been trying to lose and couldn't, once we worked together and we put her in things that fit and flattered and made her feel good, all of a sudden she's lost all that weight. And it had nothing to do with the external. It was the internal of how she felt about herself. And I want women really to look at clothing as a catalyst for reaching goals rather than a reward for reaching them. I don't know any woman who's ever hated herself into a better body or frumped herself into a promotion. It doesn't happen that way. So if you are listening and you're thinking, I'll buy the great jeans when I lose 20 pounds, or I will invest in a great wardrobe when I make X amount of money, start now. Start right now, because when you put yourself together just a little bit, like we were talking about, all of a sudden you want a little bit more and you do a little bit more, and it gives you that confidence to reach those goals. And it can start with something as simple as jeans.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love that so much. It makes such a difference. And I've been guilty. I know that a lot of our listeners are probably nodding their heads right along with me. I've been guilty of making myself wait for a reward instead of making it a catalyst in the past. But I noticed a big difference when I said, you know what, instead of trying to wait until I fit into the size I wore in high school or whatever, which is probably never going to happen, let's face it, then let's just buy another size. And I look great in the size that fits me and I feel way better about it. And then there's also, I don't want to spend the money. I have all these clothes that just don't fit me. And so I'm just going to wear these same shorts that are too big and a shirt that's too big until I can fit into the clothes that I have. And I was guilty of that too. And at some point I was like, you know what? Nope, I'm just going to buy jeans that I feel great in right now. And then I can, use a huge fan of ThredUp, the consignment shop. And so I can find jeans and my favorite brands for 80% off. And I'm like, I can afford to spend, $15, $20 on a pair of jeans that maybe I don't wear that long if I do lose the weight that I want to lose or whatever, but it's going to make a difference now. And I used to kind of beat myself up over, oh, hey, I weighed 10 or 15 pounds more than I did 5 years ago. And I feel terrible about that. And I'm going to wait until I get that weight off before I reward myself. When the reality is, if I look good now, I'm going to want to keep that good thing going. And it really just takes sometimes, a really good pair of jeans or a nice pair of shoes or just some accessories, some new makeup, something like that. The word catalyst is perfect. It just kind of sets that snowball, creates that ripple effect out into the rest of your life. And I just dig it. It is so much about confidence. And we talk about confidence a lot on this podcast because a lot of us are waiting for confidence to start their work at home journey. They're waiting for that confidence to come before they ever get started. And oftentimes the confidence comes when you actually make a move. And actually, I would say all the time, confidence comes when you make a move, because if you're not good at something or if you're not currently doing anything differently, you cannot expect to feel differently or get different results if you're not doing anything or changing anything in your life. And clothing is so much about that. It doesn't have to be anything huge. You don't have to dump your entire wardrobe. You can just go and buy a new outfit or, maybe create a small capsule, like the things that you offer on your website, and work with what you've got and get rid of what's not working. I think that's really, really important. So I'm curious, I got to kind of stick to a schedule here. I could talk about all this stuff forever. And I know that our listeners are enjoying it. We were just talking about confidence. And so one of the questions that I love to ask our guests, and I want to hear it from your perspective, is when you're making the transition from working on the ground, something that was working for you, having kind of a one-on-one in-person, not online business, and then you made the switch to working at home and working online. Were you confident, or did you have any kind of mental or emotional challenges along the way?
Oh, there have always been a ton of challenges. And I think one thing I had mentioned to you is that I love failure and I bounce back quickly. And I think that's the only thing that's kept me going. I think it's so important when you try a new thing, be willing to let go of what's not working, right? And one of the things I read when I first started my business back in 2012 was that accept that your early work is going to suck. And that was really hard for me because I'm kind of a perfectionist. I like everything to be 100%. But I look back at my early work, even working with clients, and I go, oh, I could have done better. Oh, I didn't know then what I know now. So I kind of look at it that I've taken my entire body of work and I'm just applying it in a different way. But I know that there are definitely hiccups. There are definitely things that, you make a note and you go, can't do that again, have to pivot here. So I have the confidence that I really know how to dress women. And I have the knowledge that I know nothing about running an internet business. So I just hire other people who do. I think that's one of the lessons I wish I had learned earlier in my business. Hire people who know what they're doing, because sometimes it's just not worth it to muddle through for, 6 months, a year. I think that's a confidence piece too, knowing that the business will come, the money will come, you'll be able to afford it. But these are important things that you've got to do to take that next step.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's also important to know when it's time to let go of something that's not working, being able to differentiate when that's what's happening versus, oh my gosh, it's too hard, I'm not working, right? It's like whether it's working or you're working, sometimes there's a fine line. And so I've seen a lot of people in the work that I do that they're just like, it's just not working. I'm just, it's just, nope, I'm just going to give up, And there's a difference between quitting, letting go of something that's not working, right? So it's not worth your time. Like, hiring somebody out to help you with your business versus trying to learn it all yourself. That's something completely different than saying, you know what, this is too hard. I'm never going to learn all of this. And it's time to pack up and go home because I knew I couldn't do it. Like that kind of thing. There's a difference between giving up and quitting. And I think quitting can be good because you can recognize, hey, this isn't worth like throwing away something in your wardrobe. Like look at myself in the mirror and be like, these shorts look baggy and this is not a flattering look for me at all. I'm going to just put this in the donation pile and be done with it. That's quitting, right? Giving up is saying, you know what, it's just not worth it. Nothing I do ever works. And so I'm just going to wear sweatpants and, ratty yoga clothes for the rest of my days because nothing's going to make a difference. Nothing. That's giving up. And so I love that you have drawn those parallels and that you've kind of come across that same exact thing in your business as well. Because sometimes it's just not worth it to spend. It's just called leveraging your time. And so an example would be, I don't spend a lot of time cleaning my house because it's just not a good time. And so I hire that out, and I hire out like taking care of my pool and mowing the grass. Like it's just not a good use of my time. And so it's not that I can't do it. I don't want to. It's just not a good use of our time. And so I think that it's important that we as women realize that we don't have to be Wonder Women and that we do it all for everybody. We need to be smart about how it's like work smarter instead of working harder. You can work smart and get a lot more done. Say, you make $25 an hour as an example, and you hire somebody for $15 an hour to do some cleaning for you, right? If you can use that same time to make $25 an hour, you come out on top. You get to leverage your time better. And so we've talked a little bit about outsourcing in past episodes, but it's really, that's what you've done in your business. And so not knowing how to do something is never an excuse to not get started. And so I want our listeners to really get that as well, because just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't. There's always going to be somebody who knows more than you. And so that's not something that should keep you down and make you feel paralyzed. Like, well, what's the point? Everybody's smarter than me. It's something that you can use as a tool because you don't have to know everything. And so it can either depress you that you don't know everything, or it can inspire you because somebody else does. And you can go be friends with those people and work together because chances are you know something they don't. And so there's so much opportunity there. And where a lot of people see a closed door, we should be seeing all these open doors and opportunities to learn and help each other. And that's why I love the Work at Home Heroes community. Let's talk about you becoming a mom and how that kind of affected. When did you become a mom? How old are your kids? That kind of thing. And how has that been with working at home now?
My daughters are 10 and 6, and I have worked at home since they were born, basically. I was a totally driven, career focused, family's not important. I don't know if I ever want kids kind of person. I was a director level at 24. I was definitely upwardly mobile. And then I had my first daughter and I thought this is a great time to stay at home with her. I had just transitioned out of a job and I was miserable. I am not a good stay-at-home mom. I need connection. I need to feel purpose. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying that being a mother is not purpose, because it absolutely is. But for me, I just needed something for me. I still needed to be a person, not just mom. I needed my own name, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're more than a mom.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with if you want to stay home with your kids.
Absolutely.
Not do anything else for years. That's fantastic. I just was falling apart. So I did what a lot of stay-at-home moms do, and I joined a direct sales business. And I think the only thing I'm worse at than being a stay-at-home mom is being a direct seller. I didn't like asking people to have a party, or it just was not my thing. I don't like to go to those parties. So the fact that I was doing it was not a good fit. However, and I was doing jewelry, which I love. I'm a huge accessories person. So when I would do these jewelry parties, I would teach people how to dress their body type with jewelry. Like if you have a shorter neck, you need a longer earring. If you don't like the shape of your fingers, wear a long ring, whatever it was. And people would say to me, can you dress me? Can you go shopping with me? Can you come, go through my closet? And it took me a long time to realize that they weren't asking to feed my ego. They were asking because they wanted help. And one day my husband and I were driving in a car and the little one was sleeping. And I said, well, wait a minute. I think this is a business. Could I actually do this? And my husband, who is the most supportive person on the planet, he was like, absolutely, you should totally do it. So literally, I went on Craigslist and I found somebody for $50 to do my first logo. It was so horrible. And I took $50 and started my own website. It was horrible. But I started my business with $100. And I thought, if I can just get like 1 or 2 clients a month, and that's all I needed, 1 or 2 clients a month, I'll be happy. It turns out within a few months, I was seeing clients 3 to 4 days a week, booking 3 clients a day. So my thought that women wanted wardrobe help, the concept was proven. We can just say that. And it just kind of took off. And I went through a period where I wasn't the kind of mom that I needed to be because I was out all the time. And my husband and I juggled childcare. We made it work. I was working a lot of nights. There were days I didn't see my baby because I would leave before she'd wake up. She was a great sleeper. And I would come home after she went to bed. And I just had this moment like, this isn't worth it. And that's sort of when I started to transition into doing more online stuff, simply because I want to be that kind of mom who can be there when her kids need her, but also has something for herself. And, for me, the pendulum swung way too far in the other direction and I had to pull it back a little bit.
I love that. I love the imagery of the pendulum swinging. And I also love that you were brave enough to admit, you said, quote, I am not a good stay-at-home mom. And I don't think anybody listening to that would be offended by anything you said in that regard, because they're listening to a podcast called Work at Home Heroes. And if they were interested in just staying at home and being a mom, which again, I'll say, just in case there's somebody on here that find that offensive, like that's great. I envy the people who find fulfillment in something like that. That's not me. That's not you. That's not the majority of our listeners, because we're wanting to work. We want to do something. We want to be more because we know that it's possible. And so I love that I think that's just a super bold statement. And I think there's a lot of shame and not being a mom of children, being a mom of a dog, and having these businesses that I consider my children, all my, my tribe members in the community, I feel like they're my kids, but also just having that guilt of, not being enough and not being true to myself and denying myself the things that I want because I am listening to these external voices about, what you should be as a woman. And then, you should want to be a mom and feeling guilty because you don't want to be. And then for moms, I know that there's the total mom guilt thing. We've talked about that on the show before as well. Just feeling like, if you're pulled in so many different directions, can you really be a mom? And so the thought of starting to work at home can be scary because you just feel like it's going to take you away from your kids, when the reality is it can give you more time with your kids. And just kind of breaking these molds of our thought patterns and our limiting beliefs can be so, so powerful. And I feel like if we can look ourselves in the mirror and just be honest with ourselves about what we want, what we want to do, is a huge first step in creating that life for ourselves. So during your journey, Jennifer, did you have any kind of voices in the background that were just like, yeah, okay, that's not going to work, or nobody would pay for that, or anything like that? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Well, my family, as supportive as they are and as much as they love me, my mom asked when I was starting the business, would anyone actually pay you for that? And I was like, yeah, Mom, people actually pay me for that all the time. And then when we were moving here, she said, are you still going to do that apple thing? I was like, that apple and pear thing that I've been doing for 6 years? Yes, I'm going to do that.
Oh, wow.
The other night, I told her I couldn't go somewhere with her because I had a client. And she said, wait, what kind of client? And I said, a styling client. She goes, oh, you're still doing that?
Oh my gosh. You not wring her neck. I love you, Mom, but oh my goodness. Wow.
That one I had to get off the phone really quickly. I think she comes from a different era where spending this kind of time and money on yourself just isn't a thing. It seems very frivolous to her. And what's funny is so many of the styling tips I give to people, so much of my understanding of clothes comes from her. So, she actually would have been great at what I do, but she just doesn't see it as something that is necessary or, she just sees it as kind of frivolous. And I get that. And my older sister's a little bit the same way as well. And I think it's really funny. She's a business owner as well. And she was getting ready to go to a conference that she had paid a lot of money to go to, a lot of money. And she called me and she was shopping and she had nothing to wear to this conference. She has fallen into I work from home. I don't have anyone to impress. Why bother? She had nothing to wear to this conference. And she said to me, I don't even want to go because she couldn't find pants. She said, I don't even want to go. And I said, if you had the clothes you liked, would you want to go? And she said, yeah. And so I did take the opportunity to say, so what I do isn't so frivolous, is it? And it was literally like, I've been doing this for over 6 years. It was that moment she realized, oh, wait a minute, this is not a frivolous thing. This isn't just people buying pretty things. So, my mom, I just love her because she's my mom and I don't ask for business advice. And, the other voices that I hear, I think you just kind of take them with a grain of salt and understand where people are coming from and their own limitations in understanding what you do. And I also keep an email file of testimonials and compliments and nice things that people have said to me. And when someone says to me, would anyone pay you for that? I just go through and I read that email file and I focus on the lives that I have touched and the people that I have helped and the women who are in a different place because they have pants to go somewhere. So, I love them and move on. That's all you can do.
Yeah. And really, we've talked about this theme that keeps recurring in different forms on previous episodes, but most of the time when you've got these dissenting voices in your sphere of influence, it's because they just don't get it, right? And so anybody who says they don't understand how working at home works, or that's got to be a scam, whatever, are they working at home? Then their opinion doesn't matter. Just kind of dismiss it and just do your thing and show up and prove them wrong. I feel like that we can use that kind of negativity as fuel for our fire instead of letting it kind of beat us up a little bit and just change. It's so much about just changing our perspective, understanding their perspective and just interacting with them in a way that they'll understand. But then at the same time, be like, I'll show you. And then using that as fuel for your fire. Jennifer, we're running out of time, but I want to make sure we ask the question that comes at the end of our podcast for all of our listeners. It's about fear, because fear is something that gets blamed a lot for not getting started. And so I know that there's work at home heroes that are hearing your story and, you've got 2 kids, you took your whole business that was doing well and moved it online, and you overcame the, technical difficulties by hiring it out. And then you moved across country with kids and you're doing it all and you're loving it. What would you say to somebody who's like, well, I know it worked for Jennifer, I know it worked for Caitlin and all this stuff, but it's not going to work for me. I'm just too scared to get started. What's your advice for those folks?
My tough love side would say, suck it up, buttercup, and do it anyway. Nothing is going to come if you stay in your fear, right? And if you can't take a huge leap, take one small step, do one small thing. I'm a big fan of Seth Godin, and he has this video and this book about just ship it, which is just putting it out there. If you are a product creator, your job, yes, is to create products, but it's really to get it out there. And you have to turn off what he calls the lizard brain, who's afraid of everything, and just get it out there. So, the only way you're going to build your toolbox of skills and resources is by doing it and not being afraid of failure. Failure is such a gift. It is such a wonderful thing if you don't let it keep you down. If you try something and it doesn't work and you go, okay, nothing burned, nobody died, let's just pivot and start again. That's all you can do. And when you've done that enough times, it gives you the confidence to know that the fear isn't real. The fear isn't real, and you can just try again. You can pick yourself up every single day and start again, but you've got to just start.
That is brilliant, brilliant advice. Y'all re-listen to this whole episode if you missed any of the goodness. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I'm so glad that I met you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on the show. Can you let us know where people can reach you? We've tagged you in the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. And so we've got a thread going where you can talk to Jennifer and ask her questions. Where can they reach you online?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Apple & Pear Wardrobe, and it's all spelled out. And then I actually have a special download for your listeners, which is the 5 pieces every boss babe needs in her wardrobe. If you don't have these 5 things, you need to go get them. And you can download that at bit.ly/hero style.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely be downloading that because I have a good feeling that I don't have any of them. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Well, thank you for listening. Links are in the show notes as usual. Please join our Work at Home Heroes Facebook community if you haven't already. And if you're finding value in this podcast, it would mean a ton to us at Work at Home Heroes if you leave us a review. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.